Great, welcome back. So in this video we're going to talk about the importance of management team and company structure, that section of the business plan. I think this is one of the most important sections as well. And let's talk about the management team first. If you remember nothing else from this slide, remember that for the management team, you want to show the synergies between the players in your firm. What your qualifications are, sure, that's important. What each of you has to contribute to the firm, sure, that's important. But most importantly, how you work together. Let me give an example of what not to do. Let's say, I'm a new entrepreneur, and I've hired Susie, who's got an MBA from Wharton, and she's great in finance. And I've hired Dave, who's got this MBA from Harvard. He's a fantastic accountant. And I've hired Tim with an MBA from Stanford, and he really knows how to do finance and strategy. Okay, that sounds great. It sounds like you've hired really the best people that are available. And you've shown what their qualifications are. That's great. But what you have not shown is what is your history of working together. What would make the wrong impression is if, like Dave and Susie, well, you just met them over coffee and you kind of know them, and Dave and Susie don't actually really know each other yet. They've been on opposite sides of the country. That sends the wrong message. Okay? Compare this. This is my buddy Dave. He does have an MBA from Stanford. Sure, that's impressive, but I think what's more important is that Dave and I have known each other since we were 6 years old. And we have played together. I know that Dave has always got my back, and I've always got his back. This venture may or may not last. Hopefully it does last, but I know my relationship with Dave is solid. Okay, that's good. And you can say, you know what, this is Susie, and you know what, we have been on these 5 ventures together, and these are the things that we have achieved together. Okay? And there was also this history where I worked with Dave, Susie, and Tim, and you know what, the venture unfortunately flopped. But these are the things that we learned from it, and we're not going to make those same mistakes again. Okay, now that sounds pretty good. I always like how Horace Lorimer says that in life, every man has the right to be a fool. Just don't be a fool the same way multiple times over. I kind of like that. So what you want to show, though, again, with the management team, is show your synergies, how you work together. That is so, so important. Okay? And by the way, if you're missing somebody, or you need somebody, explain that in the management team too. I've got Dave, Susie, and Tim. They're all really great. But what we really need is somebody who understands our target market. We need a marketing guru. And you put that in there as to be determined, to be hired. And when you're communicating, using your business plan to communicate with, for example, external stakeholders like banks who are financing or venture capitalists, maybe they can recommend somebody. Or maybe you can explain that we need financing so we can hire that marketing person. That's a way to communicate that. Don't try to gloss it over or lie or hide it or anything like that, because that sends the wrong message, right? That sends the message you're being sneaky. Be upfront with what your shortfalls are, what your weaknesses are, and where you need help. By the same token, you may have somebody internally who looks at your business plan and says, I do know somebody who can do marketing, and I see that you don't have somebody. Let me call my friend. Okay, that's pretty good, right? Referrals are good. Now, how do you illustrate that? Well, to me, I'm a big fan of the organizational chart, and I'll just draw a simple matrix-style organization. Those of you who have been watching my videos before know I love this particular organizational design because it's the one I got used to in the military. But just draw an org chart to explain it. Okay? Are you going to have a board of directors or not? Right? So you start off with the board of directors. And you explain, this is Steve, and then some qualifications and what Steve brings to the table. And maybe Steve, Richard, whatever, and just include that. Include their compositions in a cloud picture, just like so. Who's your CEO? Name the CEO and indicate what their qualifications are. What's their experience? What are they bringing to the firm? Same thing with your functional staff, right? You're going to have a chief of operations, a COO. You're going to have a chief of finance, the CFO. Are you going to have a CTO, chief technical officer? You find that in a lot of tech firms. What about an accountant? Etc. And you name the people and indicate what they bring to the table. And of course, you want to make sure that if you don't have that person, you just leave it kind of as blank and indicate what kind of qualifications you'd like to have. Of course, maybe you have some functional units. Okay? Strategic business units A, B, C, D, and E. And you'd do the same thing. You'd explain what those strategic business units do, who's in charge of them, and who the employees are, and what their qualifications are. Of course, maybe some of the worker bees you don't include all those qualifications, but certainly you might want to do for the managers, right? And this would be good for a firm of maybe, I don't know, 50 employees or whatever. And of course, if you're in a situation where maybe you need funding for strategic business units C, D, and E, you use that to explain it and say, we've even got somebody in mind, we just don't have the funding to do that. But it shows that you've thought this out. This is like the ideal organization. You can even use it to project further in the future. Yeah, we're here now. We'd like to be here in 3 years, and we'd like to be here in 5 years, 10 years. And you can make org charts for each, right? Now, some of you are thinking, wait a second, what does it have to do with me? Well, you're right. A lot of entrepreneurs are just going to be the sole proprietorships, the family businesses, right? A sole proprietorship means that for legal purposes, your business finances and your personal finances are kind of intermingled. Yes, that's bad practice, but in terms of the way the law is written, that doesn't really, the law doesn't really have a comment on that. I'm just telling you it's a bad practice to mingle your personal finances with those of the business. But that's like the stereotypical baker that maybe employs his 5 family members and things like that. Or maybe you need to incorporate. Maybe there's some liability and you're worried about that. So you want to incorporate your business. There's all sorts of different types of legal structures and legal forms for businesses, and you would want to include that in this slide deck too. And maybe, like, let's say you filed to become an incorporated company, or you're working on it, or you'd like to do that, or wherever you're going to go, communicate those things, okay? That's huge. Make sure that you do that. Other than that, those are the major components for the management team. As always, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Give me a like or a thumbs up. Make sure you comment down below. And make sure, I can't remember which side of the screen it's on, so make sure you subscribe. And in the next video, we're going to talk about the overall schedule for your business venture. Awesome. Hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one.